is Kate Wagner. I'm an optometrist at Elmquist Eye Group. I joined Trevor Elmquist in 2006 and have been here for the last 12 years. I was in the Army. I was active duty for 3 years. I was stationed at Fort Bragg in North Carolina. I was there for about a year before I then deployed to Iraq. I didn't really ever envision being in the military. I don't come from a military background. Neither of my parents were in the service, but it was a great life experience that I otherwise wouldn't have had. I learned a lot about myself. I learned a lot about our country, a lot about the military, and I wouldn't change, being in the service. But no, I didn't dream of being in the military as a little girl, but I wouldn't change it at this point. So after 9/11, our country was a completely different place. So when I went in 2004, I was stationed at a place called Anaconda, which is about 50 kilometers north of Baghdad, and it was had previously been a military base of Saddam, so there was quite a lot of infrastructure there already, and there was some damage from some bombings, but not a lot of damage there. So there was already some infrastructure, and by the time I was there, they were the United States was building quite a few permanent structures there. The medical clinic that I was in had been like barracks for Saddam soldiers at the time. So it was interesting. It was like a very large base. There was an airfield there. We were stationed there, with the Air Force as well. And most of what I did was for our own soldiers. Right before I deployed, they had built a larger, or were working on building a larger medical clinic for the civilians in the surrounding areas. And right around that time, it became much more dangerous, and so they stopped that mission at the time that I was there. So I was mainly, on the base for our own soldiers. But it was interesting. At Anaconda, it was the most attacked base at the time that I was there, so we were always in full battle gear and having to go into the bunkers pretty regularly. But since I was in a hardened building, I didn't have to go into a bunker as much as other people. So it was really something to get used to, and it's surprising what becomes normal over time. But it was a challenge to adjust. Probably the first month was very difficult to kind of adjust to that situation and those surroundings. Initially, when I was there, we lived in tents, and very large tents with lots of soldiers. And probably 3 to 4 weeks after we were there, then the unit we were replacing, they moved out, and then we were in kind of connexes, which they sectioned off into 3 sections. And I felt like I was at the Ritz-Carlton, because I went from a tent with 50 women to a third of a connex by myself. So I really enjoyed having that little space that was just mine. I had a little twin bed, and I had bought a television from the previous officer that was there, and could watch movies and things like that in my downtime. So that actually seemed pretty nice, actually. I did feel like the services I had and my skill set was well utilized. There were so many eye injuries and eye infections, and so it really was a blessing to be needed. But there was no shortage of things for us to do, and people to help. So I definitely felt like it was worthwhile. Well, it was important that we were, very close to, what we would call kind of the front lines, or where the soldiers were, because, a simple, a simple abrasion or an infection, untreated, could lead to them needing to leave the country if we weren't there. And so then their mission, couldn't be carried out. Or even if you had someone who, had a high need for glasses and their glasses got broken, we could actually even make them glasses. I mean, some people really can't function without their eyewear. So we would be able to even just do simple things like replace their eyewear so they could stay and complete their mission. So there were, countless stories of simple things. Of course, there were more serious things that did have to be, medevaced out, and they would go to Germany from there. But we were really able to help a lot of people, and I think preserve the mission for a lot of soldiers. I would say Iraq had prepared me for a lot of life experiences, also a lot of clinical experiences, injuries. I have removed more foreign bodies from the eye, I would say, maybe than almost anyone. I was stationed at the camp that up-armored all of the vehicles, and it's so very hot that, the guys wouldn't wear their safety glasses very often because they would fog over, they were so sweaty, they would fall. So, there was like almost a lineup that every day I removed at least, one or two, at least, pieces of metal from, from people's eyes. So, so that is something I'm very comfortable with, and just, just being comfortable. When you had to make a decision about whether you were going to manage the patient or refer them out if you couldn't handle it, that would often mean they would have to leave the country. And so you really did want to preserve the mission, but always, keeping in mind about the health and, vision of the soldiers. So I learned a lot about, management and, eye injuries. I think personally I learned a lot about just what I can handle and how to handle stress, and that, I felt like, God, was there with me all the time, and, He's always there, and I really learned to, rely on Him more, and so it strengthened my faith as well.